Who doesn't love a little bit of Calypso on a Tuesday morning? I mean, I am so glad that we shared that in the title video. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Talk Supply Chain, and I'm super excited. We've got a great show for you today for Thoughts and Coffee. I've got Josh from BetterDemand here with us, and we're going to be talking all about did the trends really pan out from January? We're also going to be talking about your gut instinct could be costing you about $500,000. Did you know that? Well, we're going to talk about that. But first, let's also talk about our show sponsor, and that's Secret Society of. If you have not joined our free membership group, head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com. Josh is one of our members. It's one of the reasons why he is here today on the show, because we went out to our members and we wanted to feature some people from our community as well. So super excited to have him here, and also want to give a shout out to some of our newest members. We've got Eric, Anna, Alex, Kashif, Eileen, Ponraj, Chanika, another Eric, Carrie, Lauren, Tony, Diana, and Christian. And we are having all sorts of great conversations over there. We also have Omar that's posting about almost on a daily basis about the tariff refunds and what you need to know and what is happening. And so we're keeping everybody up to date on what's happening in the industry. All right. If you are tuning in, I want to know where you're tuning in from. Make sure to put those in the comments. And of course, if you love the conversation, we love a good fire emoji. So make sure you give us a fire emoji in the comments as well. And of course, if you have any questions, make sure to send us those in the comments as well. All right. So let's get into what is new with Let's Talk Supply Chain. Well, we've got episode 546, Driving Efficiency from Collaboration with the team at BlackBerry Radar and Golf Wins. Now, the fun part about this is I'm actually doing a webinar with them in just a few hours about this particular topic, where we're going to dive even further into this collaboration story. And I highly, highly recommend you go and click the link in the comments so that you can register. I think we're going live at 1 or 2 Eastern today. And as you can see on the screen on letstalksupplychain.com, we have launched our AI interactive podcast experience. So you can interact just like this with any of our podcast episodes. You can click a button for executive summary. You can ask the episode a question. We partnered with Google Gemini on this. So head over to letstalksupplychain.com and check it out. What else is new? What else have we got going on? We are going live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I hope that you are coming right back here to join us, because we're going to be talking to Irina Roska. Now, she's the VP Supply Chain and Operations at Verisight, and Michael Falls, the Chief Customer Officer of Reveal. And we're going to be talking about their collaboration and how Reveal has really helped Irina and her team get greater carrier visibility, operational optimization, cost allocation, and so much more. So if you're looking for any of that, make sure you click the attend button. Even if you can't attend live, we are going to send you the link for that. Now, we have a new voice behind the Asia Pac region, and that's Fauzan. Now, we recently just launched our first episode under Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia. We put a link in the comments to follow the LinkedIn page for Asia. We'd love for you to go over there and interact, follow us. We're going to be talking about the news that's happening in the region. We're also going to be focusing on and featuring voices within that region to help us all stay up to date, because supply chain is global, but it's also very regional as well. On top of that, we're also launching Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe. Now, that's happening in September, and we want you to meet Hazel. So again, go to the LinkedIn page for Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe, get to know Hazel, get involved, and we're going to be featuring companies. We're going to be featuring voices in the industry over in Europe as well, and we cannot wait. We've got lots of great conversations happening. So where are we going to be? Well, today, like I mentioned, at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be talking to Golf Wins and BlackBerry Radar about managing equipment with dynamic pairing. If you haven't registered for this webinar, go ahead and register. I think the link is in the comment, and we would love to see you there. Where else are we going to be? In person, we are going to be at Samsara Beyond 2026. Now, that's happening June 23rd through 26th in Las Vegas, and we're going to be recording podcasts on site. We're going to be creating all sorts of social content. So if you see us there, make sure to come and say hi. And then we've got a brand new show. We announced that just a couple of weeks ago. Now, this is with DC Shrigola, and it's called Digital Lab, where supply chain technology meets reality. Now, you might be wondering what that means. Well, part of the show is going to be a conversation, and then the other part is actually going to be demos. So DC is going to be working with our guests to do micro demos so that you can really see what's out there and whether it would work for you. So highly recommend June 24th, 10 a.m. Eastern. Now, this is going to happen live, but you can click the attend button and we will send you the link once it is ready. What else have we got going on? Oh, we are going to be at the Logistics M&A Club in Chicago. Now, that's happening September 16th through 17th. I'm going to be moderating actually a panel over there. Super excited to be there and can't wait to see you all there. I think all the links are in the comments for you right now. And then last but not least, because we've got to get Josh up on stage here. This is our brand new blended episode. It's blended episode. What episode is it? I think it's episode 67. Anyways, we are talking about all sorts of things around inclusion. We're talking about empowering, celebrating, catching. Our whole entire conversation is about why learning culture matters so much within organizations. So highly recommend you go check it out, blendedpledge.org. That's where you can find it. And that's it for me. So now over to Camille. Let's get this started.
Most companies know something is broken. They buy software for a problem they haven't actually reached yet. The real pain stays buried. Our guest today has seen that pattern in 5 industries, and he spent his career digging down to the real problem. He started at Walmart, then Campbell Soup, then Kimberly-Clark, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Gilead Sciences, and Biorad. Different industries, different vocabularies, the same fundamental breakdown showing up every single time. What he found was this: companies weren't failing at forecasting. They couldn't execute the plan they already had. In 2020, he founded JSI Partners and then BetterDemand, a capacity planning platform built for the mid-market reality. His belief is direct. You can't forecast your way out of a capacity problem. Sequence matters. Today, he's asking the question the industry keeps skipping. Can you reliably hit a 1-week plan? That's where it starts. It's my pleasure to welcome Joshua Isenberg to Thoughts and Coffee.
Hi, Josh. Welcome to the show. How about that intro by Camille? I mean, we got to give it to her. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Josh. Take yourself off.
Oh,
there we go. Now we can hear you.
Yes, really appreciate that great intro.
Awesome. Well, super excited to have you here. Now, we've got a very, very cool show coming up. I want to let everybody know, if you want to learn more about Josh and BetterDemand, there's a QR code in the top right-hand corner. Make sure you click that and head over there. But first, we've got to get into the poll of the week. I know I took a little bit longer than normal with our introduction, but we had a lot to get through. And we wanted to let everybody know what's going on. So let's get to our poll. Now, we ask everybody a question on our LinkedIn page every single Wednesday morning. And we have, some really great conversations that happen, but also we get to understand the community a little bit better and how you're thinking about supply chain. So the question was, what causes the most supply chain headaches? Now, we had over 200 votes on this one. 40% of you said bad forecast. 37% of you said poor visibility. 14% said late shipments, and 8% said too many emails. I mean, I think we all have too many emails and too many meetings. Just going to put that out there. Josh, what did you think about the results of this poll? I think it's right up your alley, because the bad forecasting part at 40%. I mean, we can't pay for that.
I like to think that the bad forecast and poor visibility kind of go hand in hand, right? If we don't know what's going to, probably happen in the future, we feel like we have, really short visibility to what's coming. and it
Mhm.
just causes a lot of internal churn, which creates the late shipments, creates the expedites, creates a whole bunch of managing by email and a thread that's 300 messages long on what to do with a overdue shipment, or how do we make it right with this customer, and getting in this key raw material that we forgot about, and it snowballs, and then you end up spending 30% of your time on one order, which is just really unsustainable. We see that more often than I'd care to admit. So maybe that's comforting, or or maybe not.
Well, we had a comment from Dave Pestrak, and he said sales stealing all your inventory without warning wasn't on the list. But in my opinion, this is number one. He says, I suppose that this is kind of bad forecasting, but it isn't really. What would you say to him?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't call it sales stealing inventory, right? I'd say that's the objective, right? If we can sell through all our inventory, that should be a good problem. I think what I hear, when I hear something like that, it seems like there was a breakdown in communication on what we could sell, right, and what we plan to sell.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not alone in feeling that, right? I think there are certainly some processes that you can put in place to help alleviate that. But I'd say that's a great problem to have, as long as you can figure out a way to solve for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, if sales is running through inventory, it means you're doing something right. But again, it has to be communicated, and this is where the silos kind of break down that internal collaboration that we're all sort of striving for. I want to give a shout out to Vabab over on my personal LinkedIn. We got our first fire emoji of today, and I love a good fire emoji. So thank you for that. Now, Josh, this is the moment in time in this show where we talk a little bit about a market update. Give us just a couple of minutes of a highlight of what, folks are thinking about in your world when you're talking to them. What's keeping
Yeah.
them up at night? What's really important for them?
Yeah, I think there's rising costs, and there's kind of uncertainty in their customer base, right? As rising costs and tariffs and a lot of things are driving changes to consumer behavior. There's so much uncertainty out there, right? There's companies who are going to try and buy early to get cheap inventory, but if consumer behavior changes or moves, now you have all this cash stranded in raw materials or finished goods that you don't need, right? So there's what I'm really seeing out there is, what is the best way to kind of combat some of the uncertainty and rising prices, and how do you better position yourself from a inventory and uh, customer interaction position to be ready as trends change.
Yeah, and I think that's some really great points. We're actually going to talk about that because and that's a great sort of segue into our first article, because our first article, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here. Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about an article from January? Well, because in January, that's where most of the articles come out to talk about the trends to watch in 2026. And I really like, 6 months into the year, to go back and look at some of the trends that were predicted and sort of say, okay, these ones came to fruition, these ones didn't, they look quite differently. And what does that mean for the last half of 2026 for all of us? So looking at this article now, I want to point out some of the trends. There was 5 trends. One is return to usual inventory. Now that's a big question, and Josh, I want you to answer that one. Not just yet, but I think that's a really big part of what you were talking about in the market update. Number 2 is consumer spending decreasing. Is it really? Listen, I want to know how you think that these trends have measured up to where we are today in June 2026. And if you can put that in the comments, would love to give you a shout out and to have a conversation about this. Now, number 3, cost optimization is a top priority. Number 4, AI hype, no ROI. Number 5 is workforce is a challenge. Now, Josh, when you read this article and you read through some of the trends to watch for 2026, what did you think? Like, what are your thoughts on some of these?
I feel like every year there's always some trend that's connected to, all the big buzzwords, right? And headed
We have
into
a
this
lot,
year.
right? We have a lot in supply chain. We've got acronyms,
Yes.
we got buzzwords. I mean, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, buzzwords and acronyms are what we love in supply chain. But right, the key piece is always on cost, right, and kind of the disruptor in the space, right, which is AI. And I think a lot of people, as they're concerned on cost, right, are figuring out ways to combat that. Is that pre-buying? Is that loading up on inventory? And then, from a cost reduction perspective, how does AI support or drive some of that? And certainly some of that has come to fruition. But I don't kind of think the way we thought about it in January is really the way it's impacting everything now. I certainly don't see AI running in every mid-market company that's out there. Like, they'd have you believe in January.
Right. Well, so the consumer spending decreasing, I'm not sure that we've seen that. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. Freight recession is over. We're now looking at capacity, although capacity is a little bit low because of the enforcement around the drivers. So I'm not sure if I fully buy into that one. Returning to usual inventory, I mean, that maybe, but I think also there's been a ton of disruptions that we couldn't have necessarily predicted in January. And I think that's having an effect on that. And so I just don't think that one is there either. And the AI hype, the no ROI. We've seen the numbers, we've seen the stats. There's a lot of companies that are investing in AI. What that looks like looks different from company to company to company. How they see the ROI is very different as well. Some have seen it, some are continuing potentially to see it or continuing to drive, hoping to see it. I think what we probably didn't realize is the convergence into LLMs around AI and how it's actually divided a lot of us, right? We've got a lot of people talking about data centers and the effects on community. And then we've got a lot of people who are diving in and they're creating go-to-market strategies. And they're really, really all in. And so, AI hype, sure, but I think a lot more are buying in than it actually being just hype.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I kind of equate the AI right now to almost what big data was 5 or 10 years ago, where, a lot of companies would come out and say, give us access to your data and we'll give you these really unique insights to, drive an ROI for you. Right. And same thing with AI. Right. And there's certain companies that know how to turn insight into an ROI and actionable intelligence for their team. And then there's other companies that bring it in and hope it happens and it just permeates through the business. And I don't think, the technology changes that. It's companies who believe in it and have some kind of strategy to say, how are we taking this insight into a goal and a new business process or a new way to reach out to customers that kind of enable those insights to turn into an ROI or profitability or reduction of cost.
Yeah.
You need some way to enable it.
So true. All right. Now, before we get to our second article, it's time to go to the news desk. Julian and Diane, what have you got coming up for us this week?
Sarah, the Hormuz Strait is still closed. That one fact is driving everything else on the desk today. First up, the Strait of Hormuz is still effectively closed. The latest round of peace talks ended without progress.
A closed strait means higher fuel costs, tighter capacity, and a trade review happening under maximum cost pressure. Here's where it stands. Between May 18 and 24, only 33 cargo vessels over 10,000 DWT crossed the strait. The week before, it was 63.
That's a 48% drop in a single week. The historical average is around 60 vessels per per day.
The SCFI Global Composite hit 2,572 points, up 16% in 1 week, double its level from late February.
If your freight plan is built on pre-war assumptions, it's already wrong. This is not a short-term disruption. Next, the USMCA joint review kicks off July 1st, and the U.S. has already started bilateral talks with Mexico without Canada.
This is the first scheduled review since the agreement took effect 6 years ago.
Automotive accounts for roughly 20 to 25% of total USMCA trade flows. It's the single largest sectoral user of the agreement.
If any party signals opposition, the agreement could sunset in 2036. The next 12 to 18 months are the critical planning window.
If you're sourcing across the US, Mexico, and Canada corridor, verify your compliance status now.
Last story. Container rates are climbing again, and peak season is starting early on both Europe and Trans-Pacific lanes.
Asia to North Europe hit around $2,900 per FEU. Asia to Mediterranean jumped 20% in a single week to nearly $4,400 per FEU.
Trans-Pacific rates rose more than 10% on both lanes. Carriers are announcing peak season surcharges of $600 to over $1,000 per FEU for mid-June.
Maersk is adding an extra loader through August. Amazon moved Prime Day to June. Volume is being pulled forward.
Even if Hormuz reopens, oil price and bunker fuel recovery will take months. Rate relief is not coming fast. The cost of waiting for clarity is now higher than the cost of making a decision with incomplete information. Sarah, back to you.
Well, I appreciate those top news stories from Julie and Diane. And one of the things that I really want to point out from those three is the USMCA and the negotiations around that. I think it's going to be a really interesting 12 to 18 months. We're going to have to keep a close eye on that. I mean, those are our closest trading partners, right? And I think we're going to see something come out of this that looks unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And I'm just going to throw that prediction out. I could be totally wrong. So we'll see what happens in about 12 months, and you can call me out on it, but it's all good. What did you think? Anything that you want to add to any of those? Or
Yeah, I mean, I know from my experience, there's a lot of large manufacturers who have been set up based on the tax benefits or drawbacks, right, of producing in different, right, Canada or Mexico, bringing it in as a semi-finished, importing as a finished good, and a lot of those kind of beneficial ways to get a good price back to consumers in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But as that changes and big footprints and a lot of money's been invested in that, how does changes to that pivot? How does that then change, consumer spending or the cost of goods? Can have real serious implications with long lead times to make changes.
Yeah.
And that could leave a lot of open opportunities for mid-market, right? Who don't have, big footprints and a lot of concrete down. Or, it could go the other way, right?
Yeah.
And really lend itself to those, big market cap companies. Don't know which way it's going to land, but certainly some implications to look out for. And the companies that can be nimble and jump on it will probably have a great head start.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's give a shout out to those who are over on our Instagram live: Ahmed, Bautista, Jen, Randy, Gian, Nazmit, and Amuliana. I hope I got that right. Anyways, let's get to our second article. Now, I think you wrote this article, or at least your team wrote this article, and like the hidden costs of running supply chains on gut instinct. I love the title because we've kind of been talking about this almost as long as I think we've been talking about silos over collaboration. But one of the stats in here is that your gut instinct and running decisions on gut instinct could be costing you upwards of $500,000, which I thought was a staggering stat. The other part of it was I was reading through the story, and we're going to put the link in the comments for everybody. I was reading through the story, and I was literally like feeling like I was sweating because we were talking about how they have like 12 spreadsheets open and all these phone calls. And I was like, whew, I go back to my logistics days, and it's like, yeah, kind of looks like that. All right, Josh, why did you write this?
Well, I've yet to really talk to a mid-market company who doesn't really run on some kind of tribal knowledge or some existing thought that isn't written down or documented from a process perspective of how they do things, whether that's buying, long-term negotiating, handling freight expedites, managing key customers, and the rate at which things change now, based on oil prices or available inventory or customer base changing. Doing what you did last year in the previous 5 years could be very different now, right? So an expedite that used to be $1,500 to a customer could be 5 or 6 grand right now, and that could be your margin evaporated or negative to drive that. And if that's the way your business was running for a long time, that that can be an issue. Or setting up long-term buys and bringing in a lot of inventory weighted to come in that's now 30% more. You can tie up a bunch of working capital that keeps you from delivering what you need. And without kind of that forward-looking mentality and just kind of doing it the way you had been before without really any new insights or information can really be an issue.
Yeah. And we got our second fire emoji. Thanks, Maureen. Love that. What kind of also stood out for me on this article was you talked about 12 spreadsheets, David. You talked about all these emails, but then you also talked about a group text with your top 3 suppliers. And I was like, because we didn't really do group texting when I was in logistics, but now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, we've got WhatsApp, we've got text, we've got Slack. And that just adds a whole new dimension to really want to get a handle on this. So you're not being pulled in all sorts of directions. I did an article or a post in Secret Society of Supply Chain the other day about time blocking. And that's only as good as, who you need to get back to for the day and whether you can actually stick to that time blocking. I feel like WhatsApp and group text and all that kind of stuff kind of pull you from that. So I just wanted to make that distinction. But what you also said was money is left on the table through excess inventory, stockouts, higher freight costs, and your supplier portals being down. That one I also thought was interesting. It's out of your control, right? But it could potentially be part of your control in the fact that you work closely with your suppliers to obviously make sure that that doesn't happen. And when we think about cybersecurity, when we think about cyber threats, that one is a big one, right? If you're working closely with your suppliers and you're in lockstep with how they're thinking about cybersecurity and how they gain access to their system and your system, I think it's an important point to know. Do you have one more thing you want to say on this? And then I want to get to our third article.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, right? A lot of companies kind of treat every supplier as kind of on equal footing, right? It's very transactional, right? There may be ones that you talk to more and build a little bit more of a rapport, but that doesn't mean that there's a different way that you're strategically going about it or reaching out or setting up contracts that benefit both of you. And kind of without that, right, in those situations where you're in a pinch or you're in a bind, you haven't set up or my grandfather said putting chits in the bank. You haven't really set that up to make a withdrawal, and that can really be tough.
So true. So true. All right. Shout out to Mr. Arshan, Diego, Astrid, and Harshmeet over on our Instagram as well. We love to see you there. All right. This is our last article. Now, I thought this was really interesting because when we think about supply chain shortages around whatever disruption, this one is because of, I believe, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. We think about raw materials, right? We think about ingredients. We think about the food itself. But in this particular instance, there is ink that Japan's best known snack bags cannot get. And so they are going from color to grayscale. And honestly, I thought this was really interesting because it's not something that we think about. We've got about 30 seconds, Josh. I know not a ton of time, but give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are really good at kind of understanding their 4 key products, maybe single or dual sourced, and kind of where to manage that. But when different things are happening across the globe, is, nothing is really ever locally sourced.
Right.
There are a lot of different things you need to think through of what could impact you. And sometimes this data is really difficult to kind of come by. So having some kind of agent or kind of quick way to ask a question to say, how much of our product comes from here, or how much of our product comes from there, or
Right.
with these changes in pricing, right? How is it going to affect me? And that I think is a really unique talent that can differentiate you. And certainly the largest snack company in the world isn't isn't prepared for that. So a lot of mid-market is not prepared for that either.
Yeah. Yeah. Highly recommend you go and read that article, because it also talks about how the company and the government aren't actually on the same page about the shortage, which I thought was quite interesting. So go check that out. And remember, click the QR code to learn more about Josh and his company. But that's it for today. Wow, that went by quick. I mean, we're the fastest 30 minutes in supply chain. So, and we get through a lot of topics. Josh, you were such a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us. And to everybody in the audience, we're going to be back next week with another great show. See you then.
Thanks for having me.